What's good, YouTube? It's your boy, Blue Blood Sports TV, back at y'all with another one. So, legendary trainer, highly glorified trainer, Ronnie Shields, trainer of Undefeated, two-division world champion, currently the WBC reigning middleweight world champion, superstar boxer, Jermall Lions Only Charlo. He addressed all the talk of Jermall Charlo possibly facing two-time super middleweight WBC undefeated world champion Mexican superstar boxer David Benavidez at some point in time in the very near future. And Ronnie Shields, he had this to say. He says he don't believe it's going to happen anytime soon. And he believes that Jermall Charlo is going to be sticking around at 160 for at least another year. Not to mention, he believes that David Benavidez brings absolutely nothing to the table because he's no longer a world champion. If he was a world champion, he says Jamal would go up to 168 and challenge him for his world title. But since he's not a world champion, it doesn't make sense to face off against David Benavidez. And he had this to say. He says if he's going to go up to 168, he's going to challenge what he considers the best fighter in the world in four-division world champion, unified WBC, WBA, super middleweight world champion, superstar boxer, Saul Canelo Alvarez. He says that his style, Jermall Charlo's style, matches up great with Canelo Alvarez, and he believes that he could beat Canelo Alvarez. He believes Canelo Alvarez is the best fighter in the world. When it comes to David Benavidez, he says he's a good fighter, but it's no point in Jamal going up to 168 and challenging David Benavidez. Well, the difference is Jermall Charlo is stating that he would definitely make a fight with David Benavidez. Obviously, him being trained, that being Jamal, by Ronnie Shields, and Ronnie Shields being a boxing knowledge, he being a boxing brain, a historian in the sport of boxing, and a former fighter, and a legendary trainer, he's going to obviously listen to Ronnie Shields' advice. With that said, in the interview Jermall Charlo did with Brian Custer on Last Stand Podcast, shout out to Brian Custer on Last Stand Podcast, Jermall Charlo, he stated that when Brian Custer asked him, is there a possibility of you facing off against David Benavidez? And Jermall Charlo immediately responded, absolutely, make that fight happen. I will knock him out under 6 rounds. The most I give him is 6 rounds. The fans, they're clamoring for a fight with Jermall Charlo and David Benavidez. But Ronnie Shields believes that's not the fight that the fans are truly clamoring for. The fight the fans are truly clamoring for is Canelo Alvarez and Jermall Charlo. And that's the fight they're going to seek out if they're moving up to 168. Now, Ronnie Shields, he did say that Jermall Charlo is a very big guy. He can make 168 comfortably, and he'll possibly be stronger should he go to 168. With that said, the fans are clamoring for Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez. If you touch the gauge of the fans, they want to see this fight. There's a lot of intrigue, a lot of interest in Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez. And there's no world title on the line. But this is actually the bigger fight than any fight Canelo Alvarez can make. The fight against Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo Alvarez would not be a bigger fight without belts on the line. Now, that's a unification bout. Billy Joe Saunders has a WBO title. Canelo Alvarez has the WBA and the WBC. So it's a unification bout for both guys. Billy Joe Saunders is an undefeated two-division world champion who is a British superstar boxer. But yet, you bring all of those commodities together, they don't equal up to David Benavidez and Jermall Charlo without any belt. Again, it's a future showdown in September should Canelo Alvarez get past Billy Joe Saunders May 8th. He's looking to go for undisputed against undefeated IBF super middleweight world champion superstar boxer Caleb Plant. This would be the first time a Mexican-born fighter, should he beat Caleb Plant for his IBF title, becomes undisputed with all four major sanction bodies. But again, Caleb Plant versus Canelo Alvarez for undisputed in September would not be a bigger fight than David Benavidez and Jermall Charlo in September. The last time we saw Jermall Charlo in the ring was against Sergey Derevyanchenko. That was September 26th of 2020. That's the highest profile fight he's had in his career. And the fans are clamoring to see Jermall Charlo in the ring with better opposition. Obviously, it's not all his fault. He became the mandatory challenger at middleweight for Canelo Alvarez WBC title. Canelo Alvarez, he then vacated the belt, petitioned, according to his WBC sanctioned body president, Mauricio Suleiman. They petitioned the WBC to be franchised, something that was never introduced to the sport of boxing, never existed in the sport of boxing, and yet it existed now because, according to Mauricio Suleiman, Jermall Charlo was not an option for Canelo Alvarez until they franchised him, in which saw Jermall Charlo be elevated to the WBC super champion, the sole champion at 160, and he defended it against Brandon Adams. He actually was informed that Wednesday before the Saturday fight with Brandon Adams, the week of the fight, that he would indeed be the WBC full champion. So with that said, Jermall Charlo was also at 154, junior middleweight, with Canelo Alvarez. The fight was a possibility. Canelo Alvarez, he moved to 160. Jermall Charlo moved to 160. He just won't give him the opportunity. It doesn't seem like Canelo Alvarez have much interest in fighting Jermall Charlo at any point in time. This fight, as David Benavidez stated, would catapult them and give Canelo Alvarez in a reasoning, incentive to want to fight the winner of this fight. Because, again, if Jermall Charlo, my theory, he should fight Danny Jacobs. That's a big fight. It's a huge fight. It's a rivalry. There's history there. It's a storyline. It's easy to build. I believe that would be a huge fight. And then he fought David Benavidez. Well, then you're giving Canelo Alvarez incentive to want to fight the winner should Jermall Charlo beat David Benavidez, which I believe that Jermall Charlo would win the fight against David Benavidez. I believe he's just more technical. I think he's just more skilled. He's defensively savvy. He's slightly slick. He could be flat-footed at times, but David Benavidez, he comes forward. Defense is not his number one priority. He throws punches and bunches. He's very athletic, is very fast hand speed, but he's very flat-footed at times as well. He gets hit a lot. And I believe that Jermall Charlo's accuracy, his technical ability, his power, his beautiful jab, probably has the best jab in boxing, would be the difference in a fight. But with that said, this would be a situation where the rubber truly meets the road. Ronnie Shields, he believes that Canelo Alvarez style, along with Jermall Charlo style, the rubber would meet the road. I agree. They both at times can be very flat-footed. They let him fly. But Canelo Alvarez, he's been there before with that type of style. Gennady Triple G Golovkin. His style is pretty similar to that of Jermall Charlo's. He's not as athletic. He's not as big as Jamal. He's not as quick as Jamal. But he's very technical, and he's much bigger than Canelo Alvarez. But with that said, Jermall Charlo is much bigger than Canelo Alvarez, standing at 6 feet tall with a 74-inch arm reach. Canelo Alvarez at 5'8" with a 70-inch arm reach. So he's definitely at a size disadvantage, that being Canelo Alvarez, when it comes to most of the guys he faces off against. Jermall Charlo is not going to be unifying any belts at 160. Ronnie Shields, he says, he admits that Jermall Charlo pretty much did everything he can do at 160, and it's going to be time for him to move up to 168. Well, I think it's better sooner than later, seeing as though he's not going to unify against Demetrius Andrade because they have a history. Demetrius Andrade, he signed to fight Jermall Charlo's identical twin brother, who is two-time world champion junior middleweight superstar boxer, who's unified currently right now, who used to be trained by Ronnie Shields. The week of the fight, Demetrius Andrade pulled out the fight. So they have no interest, and I can't blame them in negotiating with Demetrius Andrade because they don't feel like they could trust Demetrius Andrade to stick to his word and make the fight actually come to fruition. Gennady Triple G Golovkin, he holds the IBF title. Demetrius Andrade holds the WBO. Gennady Golovkin, he made it abundantly clear he has no interest in fighting Jermall Charlo. He's looking to fight Jaime Munguia in his next fight. So that X's out Gennady Golovkin. Then WBA is Murata, and nobody knows what Murata's doing, but he doesn't show any interest in fighting Jermall Charlo. So there's no unification bouts there. So my thing is this. If he's going to fight a guy at 160 that doesn't have a belt, they're not going to have a big name, you may as well go ahead and start making your way to 168. Because who is he going to fight at 160 that's a big fight? There's big fights at 168. David Benavidez doesn't have a belt. You got to look at it from this standpoint. Sergey Derevyanchenko, he didn't have a belt. Now, he was coming off an impressive performance against Gennady Triple G Golovkin. But then you look at it from this standpoint, and you have to say, well, Sergey Derevyanchenko, yes, he put up a great performance against Danny Jacobs. He put up, in my opinion, I thought he beat Triple G, in his fight. But going into the Jermall Charlo fight, he was coming off a loss to Triple G, not a win, and he didn't have a title. So we can't say that because David Benavidez doesn't have a belt, that they don't make it a big fight. Because the biggest fight to date for Jermall Charlo is the fight with Sergey Derevyanchenko, and he was coming off of a loss and didn't have a belt. You look at David Benavidez, he has no losses. And that's not the first loss. It's not like we could look at Sergey Derevyanchenko and say, well, that was the first loss in his career, and he didn't deserve the loss. Well, you got to look at it from this standpoint. Sergey Derevyanchenko already previously lost to Danny Jacobs before he lost to Gennady Triple G Golovkin. So, we look at David Benavidez, he has no losses on his resume. So I believe this is a huge fight. But according to Ronnie Shields, they don't believe that this fight makes sense. They don't believe that, it's doable in the foreseeable future. And they're focusing on Canelo Alvarez. So let's see if things change. But this is a huge fight, in my opinion. And I believe the fans are clamoring for it and calling for it. So let's see how this plays out. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Y'all already know what it is. It's your boy Blue Blood Sports TV. Hate, like, comment, and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the bell icon to get all the new notifications. Follow me on Instagram at Blue Blood Sports TV, all one word. You already know what it is. Shout out to the entire LDBC. Shout out to New Media. Shout out to Black Media Row. Make sure you like your shitty videos. That's all we got for y'all. Peace.